Welcome to Mysteries of Superstition Mountain. I'm Larry Hedrick, where we bring the past into the present for our future viewers. Today we have another great story by Hank Sheffer.
Thank you, Larry. You know, as so often is the case, people come out here to go looking for treasure, looking for gold, any kind of thing that has adventure written around it. But when it says treasure, the one singular thing that they all have in common is that they have a map either in their mind or on paper, and it has an X on it that marks the spot. Well, the interesting thing about the X that marks the spot is that it has two options. One of those options is that when you get there, the X is in the wrong place. Or the other option is the X is fine, but the gold is in the wrong place. Either way, you don't find anything except the X. Well, today what we're going to talk about is a place where X really does mark the spot, and I'm going to show you right where it is. I'll tell you about the gold itself a little bit later, but I'm going to show you right where it is. And we're going to deal this time with the Palmer Mine that's on the western facade of the Superstition Mountain. Now, before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about Ralph Fleetwood Palmer himself. He was an interesting man, a man who really loved this area, loved Arizona, loved superstitions. But now, Palmer was born in Marquette, Michigan, back in 1875. He grew up like all good little boys. He went to school, and he finished up that part of his schooling at the University of Michigan in 1898. From there, he went on to the University of Illinois for 2 more years. And once he graduated from there, he immediately went into to a hospital over in Chicago, where essentially I think what he was doing was serving an internship until 1902. Now, as soon as he got his diploma from that, and bear in mind he's a surgeon now, he's a full-blown physician, he's got everything working for him. And in 1902, in December, the first thing he did was he booked out of there and he went to Arizona. It was still Arizona territory at that time, but he's now in Arizona. He was a busy boy there for the first 3 months while he was here. He first went to Prescott, and then there, very shortly thereafter, he wound up in Camp Verde. And from that point, he went over to where this brand new dam project was going in over at Roosevelt Dam. He was working there as a clinic doctor. He was taking care of the Indians as well as anybody else who was working on there. But this is where we get the impression that he really decided that he loved Arizona. He was going to stay here forever. He loved it here. And the story comes down that there was a chief who, his name was Ashnishne, and all of his Indian braves, or the people who were with him there, were the ones doing the work on the Roosevelt Road at that time, or the Dam Road, which we now call Apache Trail. They had decided to quit working because the chief's 2 wives had gotten into a fight, and they were afraid that they were going to die. And Ashnishne, he was just having a real fit because these 2 wives, who had actually been in a fight with each other, one had a hatchet cut in the side of her skull. Now, you can't make this stuff up, people. This is what the true story is. And what was going to happen was these wives are each supposed to give him a son that he could impart the secrets of the Superstition Mountain and the Thunder Gods to. And if they died, then he didn't have any sons. He was going to get cranky. The Pimas were going to live, and we wouldn't be able to build Roosevelt Dam. And there you have it. Well, as it turns out, he was able to cure both of the wives. The Indians did go back to work, and everybody was happy as frog's hair, however happy that may be. So now we know about Palmer himself, and this is where he decided he's going to stay in Arizona forever because of the adventure. Now we can talk about the mine. And the way to do that is we have to actually start in 1886 with William Kimball. William Kimball stumbled across, which is normally the case, he stumbled across an ore deposit that was actually copper. And it was on the front alluvial fan of the Superstition Mountain. And he started to dig and dig and dig. And he dug down to the 75-foot level. He actually found some pretty rich ore there. He shipped it off. And he kept the mine going for nearly 20 years. Unfortunately, by 1906, he caught himself a bad case of pneumonia. That's what he did, and he up and died. It was terrible. At any rate, the mine stood there on its own, doing nothing for about 11 years. But come 1917, we have a conglomerate of gentlemen who get together, businessmen, and they decide that they're going to take over the mine and see what they can do with this. They finally got the mine dug down to an additional 95 feet, to 120 feet. And they also, in 1918, had cut in a drift. And they found in this drift, it was a 35-foot drift, and they found ore deposits there of gold that assayed out at 882 ounces a ton. It was just a pocket of gold, but they found that. At any rate, very shortly thereafter, the mine was shut down again. In 1917, bear in mind, we're now called into war with Germany in the First World War. Now, a little sidebar about that most people don't even think about was that the Germans had actually tried to make a pact with Mexico to become part of the allies of Germany. And if that was to take place, they would receive parts of Mexico back again from what was now going to be Arizona. And bear in mind, Arizona at that time was the bottom half and the top half was New Mexico. So that was a deal. That's just a little sidebar that most people don't know. It didn't work out. Mexico didn't fight. They still don't fight. Be that as it may. So the mine shut down again. Now, in this conglomerate of people that had taken over the mine, which was called at that time the Buckhorn and Boulder Mining Company, was our friend Palmer. Well, these another 10 years passed by. In 1926, thereabouts, he bought into the mine. He paid off the $5,000 note that had come to be, and he paid off any assessments that should have been going on at the time, and he took over the mine himself. He was excited. This was something he'd always wanted. He wanted to have a gold mine in Arizona, and that's what he did. The only problem was he didn't have enough capital to keep digging. And in his mind, he believed that this mine had to get down below 225 feet to really find the gold that he believed was there. Now, bear in mind, we're talking about 225 feet straight down is what he's doing. Well, he got some other guys together and they formed another company that was called the Superstition Sage Mining Company. And they finally, after 10 years, got enough money to continue their dig. And they're digging and digging and digging. Another 10 years passes by. And we're now down to the point where what's happening is that there's more money going into getting the money out of the hole than the money coming out of the hole to pay the guys who are taking care of doing all the business. So nobody's making money here. So 1945 rolls around. And what happens? is we have a fellow by the name of Ernesto Hackeo, who is down at the bottom of this hole. They're just about at the 225-foot mark, and he's setting charges. And they accidentally go off too early. Needless to say, he did not fare well from that. And unfortunately, they were now at a point where nobody could continue anymore. The mine was closed down. Palmer left. One good thing out of that was he was the first doctor to have a hospital that was here in Mesa, but that's another whole story. But at any rate, now the mine is closed, and Palmer no longer has his mine. The only thing that was happening at this point, after being closed for another 7 or 8 years, was that the mine would fill up with water. And they were pumping water from that to feed cattle from the Barkley Ranch, the Quarter Circle U Ranch. And that went on until 1952, until finally the mine was finished. Shortly thereafter, I don't know the exact date, haven't been able to find that, and I'm sure it's out there. You all can find it if you want. The mine was completely filled in, and there's nothing there now but pretty flat ground. You can walk by it. You can see where it is. The neat part about this story that I like to say, there are actually 4 ironies that go along with the Palmer mine. The first irony is that William Kimball, who found the mine to start with and did get a little bit of copper out of it, for 20 years, they never made any money. Nobody made any money. And then when the Buckhorn and Boulder Company came along and they put their own money in and invested for 20 more years, nobody made any money. And then the third time around, when Palmer finally got his dream to come true, and he dug this bodacious hole down to 225 feet, it got blown up, and nobody made any money. The fourth irony is the hardest irony of all, is that the gold is still there. Because while they're digging this 225-foot hole, they're also digging drifts off to the sides. And many of those drifts, the first one we found was 882 ounces of gold per ton. There were also numerous other ones that were 400 ounces to the ton or more. And what they did was they dug through the veins. They never mined the gold that was there to make enough money to make it worth anything. Now, do I know why those 4 ironies exist? No, I don't. But I can tell you what I do know for sure is that the X on the map over the Palmer mine is true. It's just you're going to need a shovel that's 225 feet long to get down to the gold. Otherwise, it just remains one of those mysteries of the Superstition Mountain. Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.